Greetings and welcome to the virtual classes of Divine Public School, Mohanapur, Gorakhpur. Today we will begin our new lesson, that is lesson number 2, the story of the aeroplane. The desire to fly is an idea handed down to us by our ancestors, who looked enviously on the birds soaring freely through space on the infinite highway of the air. Set by Wright brothers on their flying experiments. There was a time when the people could never dream of flying in the air like a bird. But today, we went on Mars. Now, not only any part of the world, but we can fly and we reached in the space. Today, in this lesson, we are going to read about the Wright brothers who invented the first aeroplane. So, students, open your book, English 1, lesson number 2, The Story of the Aeroplane, on page number 24. Here we begin. Wilbur Wright and Orville Wright created history when they invented the first aeroplane. They designed their first aircraft that was a small glider. It was flown as a kite. They arched the tips of the glider's wing slightly to control its balance and movement. To get better idea, the Wright brothers spent hours observing birds in flight. They noticed that birds soared up in the sky and the curved surface of their wings helped them move up. Birds changed the shape and flapped their wings to turn and control their speed. The Wright brothers thought that they could use this method and change the shape of the wings of the glider to fly it successfully. Here, in Wright brothers, Wilbur and Orville Wright made history when they invented, or we can say, discovered the first aeroplane. They designed the first aircraft that was a small glider. Glider means curved. It was flat like a kite. They arched the tip of the glider's wing slightly to control its balance and movement. Means they curved or twisted the tip little bit because first time they are going to fly the glider without any pilot. To get better idea, the Wright brothers they spend hours and hours observing birds while they are flying. They took several hours to notice. They took the observation how birds are flying. They noticed that the birds used to rise high in the air and using their curved wings on the uppermost part of the wing, which helped them to move up. After that, they changed their shape of the wing and started flapping. Flapping means moving their wings up and down when they are flying. This flapping, this moving up and down leads to turn and control their speed. Means the birds they started moving their wings up and down while flying to take turn and to control their speed. This observation, this notice of seeing the birds flying gave them an idea about changing their method and shape of the wings of the glider to fly it successfully their flight. Over the next 3 years, the Wright brothers designed many gliders that were flown unmanned or without pilots. They realized that a good control of the flying aircraft was the most difficult problem, but they were not afraid of failure. After a successful glider test, they built and tested a big, full-sized glider at Kitty Hawk in North Carolina. The place was suitable because of its wind, sandy soil, hills, and remote location. In 1900, They were successful in flying a big 50-pound glider with a 17-foot wingspan at Kitty Hawk again, both as unmanned and pilot flights. After that, for the next 3 years, what Wright brother did? They designed many gliders and they were flying it without pilots. They thought and realized that a good control of flying aircraft was the most difficult task for them. But then also, they were not afraid of any failure. After a successful glider test, they started building and testing the experiment on big full-sized glider at Kitty Hawk in North Carolina. This place, Kitty Hawk in North Carolina, was suitable for their experiment because of its wind, sandy soils, hills, and remote location. Remote location means a place far away from the city area or population. In 1900, they had a successful flight, and the glider was about for 50 pound with 17-foot wingspan, meaning a wingspan is the maximum extent across of the wing of an aircraft measured from tip to tip. So the weight was 50 pound with 17-foot wingspan, and they did this test at Kitty Hawk in North Carolina in both the condition with pilot and without pilot. In fact, it was the first glider having a pilot. They decided to build a bigger and the better glider. Their thrill and excitement could not be expressed in words. In 1901, the Wright brothers flew the biggest glider ever flown. It weighed 100 pounds, but many problems occurred. The wings could not lift it high enough, and sometimes the aeroplane spun out of control. It was a time, it was the history. The first glider was having a pilot. Then they decided to build the bigger one and the better one. Their happiness in creating the bigger, the better glider, that excitement was or can't be expressed in the words. In 1901, the Wright brothers flew the biggest glider ever. It weighed 100 pounds, and then they faced many problems. Many problems occurred, and the problem was the wings could not lift it high enough. It can't go high enough, and sometimes it loses its control. It is spun out of control. Spun means turning round and round in a quick movement. That's why, because of the heavy weight, and it was not able to go up high, it loses its control. They were extremely disappointed, but they soon overcome it. The love for adventure helped them move on. Later, they decided to build a new and improved glider with a tail to make it stable and a wingspan of 32 feet. In 1902, the Wright brothers flew the glider many times. The movable tail of the glider helped to balance the craft. They were happy to be successful. Next, they decided to build a motor powered aircraft. Because of its failure, the craft was losing its control. The Wright brothers were extremely disappointed, but soon they overcome up with it. Because the love, the excitement, the thrill for the adventure in making the craft the better one helped them to come up with another better and the best glider. Later, they decided to build a new and improved glider with a tail to make the craft stable and a wingspan for about 32 feet. In the year 1902, the Wright brothers took the glider many times. They took the experiment many times. The movable tail of the glider helped to balance the craft. They were happy for their success. Next, they decided to build a motor powered aircraft. An aircraft with motor so they can fly, they can have the best glider for humans. They designed a motor and a new aircraft. The aircraft weighed 700 pounds and was called the Flyer. The brothers built a downhill track to launch the Flyer. This helped the aircraft to gain a good airspeed to fly. After two attempts to fly the machine, one of which was almost a small crash, Orville Wright took the Flyer for a 12-second flight on 17 December 1903. It was the first successful powered flight in history. In 1904, the flight lasted more than 5 minutes. The Flyer was flown by Wilbur Wright. Now they designed a motor and a new craft. The weight of the aircraft was 700 pounds and it was called as Flyer. The both brothers built a downhill track, means a path that leads down from the top of the hill to set a launch for the Flyer. This downhill track gave the aircraft to gain a good airspeed to fly. That means it will increase the speed of the aircraft to fly. After two attempts to fly the machine, one met with a small crash. Orville Wright took the Flyer for 12-second flight on 17 December 1903. It was the history, they created the history for the powerful powered flight. In 1904, the flight which lasted for more than 5 minutes that was flown by Wilbur Wright. They had the successful flight more than 5 minutes for more than 5 minutes and that was taken by or flown by Wilbur Wright. So students, this was all about the dreaming to fly like bird which became reality because of the Wright brothers. They made dream into a reality. Now it's time for difficult word. Difficult words: Wilbur, arch, Orville, flapped, wingspan, piloted, soared, stable, unmanned, Carolina, pilots, flyer, glider, excitement, adventure, downhill track, aircraft, Kitty Hawk, history, December. Home assignment: read the lesson twice, learn all difficult words, learn all the years mentioned in this story about flying aircraft by Wright brothers. Students, stay safe. Thank you.